Well, good morning. So it is so nice to see so many family members of the physicians and the faculty, as well as those who are involved in the efforts to get a medical school here in Shreveport. I see so many important people, and I know I would leave names out. I certainly want to recognize Martha McDonald. Martha's here. Martha, please stand, and thank you for all that you have done. And would all of you who had been instrumental in founding the school, would you and your families please stand and be recognized? And there's so many of you here. And I will certainly recognize Dr. David Deshay, as you'll represent all our faculty. David, you've been here 45 years, since 1970. A beloved teacher, beloved by everyone, and thank you for everything that you've done on our behalf. So a few comments. When I travel around the country, and especially in academic medical circles, I'm often asked, Chancellor, how on earth did you get a medical school in Shreveport, Louisiana? After all, there were only 100 in the entire country when this one was dedicated, and today there are only about 140, most in large metropolitan areas. When it comes to the economic and cultural impact to the community, our Dean, Dr. Marymont, likes to compare it to having an NFL franchise in your town. There is really only one answer to the question of how Shreveport got so lucky, and that is that the perseverance of the physicians and citizens of this town who fought for it for more than 20 years. And boy, did they ever have to fight for it. Every step forward was a mile, and there were many obstacles along the way. But in the end, their steadfast determination won out. And there's a little bit review in the editorial today in the Shreveport Times that I wrote, that if you'd like to see a little bit of the history, it's in there this morning. With such a long, circuitous journey to get here, choosing a date for Founders Day might have been a little bit difficult. There were many milestone dates to choose from. April 4th, 1950, when the idea was first proposed. November 11th, 1963, when the Medical School Study Committee was formed. June 7th, 1965, when Governor John McKeithen signed the legislation authorizing the school. September 15th, 1969, when the first classes began at the VA hospital. September 16th, 1971, when the groundbreaking was held, and October 28th, 1975, when Governor Edwin Edwards and former Governor McKeithen joined LSU officials for the ribbon cutting for the new medical school, as well as Mr. Joe Machota, who was there at the ribbon cutting on that date. Someone several years ago decided on October 28th, the day of the ribbon cutting, for the first Founders Day event. It was held in 1982 with Senator J. Bennett Johnston as the featured speaker. And so today, October 28th, 2015, we commemorate our 40th Founders Day. So I thank you all for coming to help us celebrate this wonderful institution and those who made it possible. Now I'd like to recognize our Student Executive Council President, Renee Doe, to come forward for a presentation. Is Renee here? Oh, there she is.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Renee, and I'm the Executive Council President of the Medical School and the Graduate School, and it is an honor for me to be here with you today. On behalf of the Executive Council, I'd like to commemorate today with this photo that we have here, an aerial view of our campus. As a Shreveport native, I am just so proud to be a member here of this institution. And I hope that someday when we look back on this moment, we can remember that in 2015, we have come together and just look back on the amazing accomplishments that we've made together. Thank you for letting me be here today.
Thank you, Renee. And thank you to the Student Executive Council. It'll be interesting for those who come after us to compare this picture with the state of the campus on future Founders Days. Now, when we first began to plan this day, it was immediately obvious who the speaker should be. There is no one who is more intimately aware of its history or more instrumental in the success of this medical school than the man you see on the left in the picture behind me, Dr. Ike Muslow. Dr. Muslow has the distinction of being the longest-serving dean in the history of the School of Medicine in Shreveport, a title he held 3 separate times. He was also vice chancellor from 1991 to 2000 and a member of the founding faculty of the medical school. Among his many accomplishments, he played an integral role in the development of the medical school, presided over the merger of the school with what was then Confederate Memorial Medical Center, and led the transition to a university teaching hospital. He helped establish advanced medical programs such as the hospital's burn center and Department of Emergency Medicine. Major capital projects, including the Feisweiler Cancer Center, the Women's and Children's Center, the Ambulatory Care Center, Radiation Therapy Center, and the new School of Allied Health Professional buildings, all began under his leadership. He developed the Family Medicine Residency Program, and many other educational program advancements occurred under Dr. Muslow's watch. Serving in a variety of administrative positions, he was both decisive and beloved by his staff. He is one of the most outstanding clinicians in the United States, a true doctor's doctor, and a marvelous role model known for his bedside teaching skills. He recruited outstanding faculty, established a national reputation for the School of Medicine, and helping to educate a generation of physicians. He was also a member of the Louisiana Board of Medical Examiners, which licenses and regulates physicians in the state. When Dr. Muslow retired from his LSU position in 2000, he continued to mentor students and residents as a part-time physician at the Overton Brooks VA Medical Center. Fortunately for all of us, he continues to teach to this day and inspires students as a gratis faculty member of our medical school. We are all thankful for that and for all that he has done for all of our campus and our community. Dr. Ike Muslow.
Well, after that introduction, I should just sit down. But first, I would like to thank Sally Groom and those who offered me this position to give this address. I think it's quite an honor, and I appreciate it. And it's probably my last public address that I will take on. And before I begin, I'd like to introduce my family members. First is my wife, Bert, who has been my devoted supporter as well as critic for 59 years. I got it right, Bert. And 2 of my 9 grandchildren who are also here. Sarita now works in the Department of Anesthesia, just graduated last year from North Texas State after completing 4 years of a swimming scholarship offered to her. And her last year, she was elected as the captain of the swim team by her teammates. Now, Sarita has assured me that she has not suffered any ill effect or any obstacles because she bears my last name. Now, Eitan is a member of the Israeli Defense Forces, and his most recent combat was in Gaza during that conflict. He has spent 3 years and is anticipating possibly a 4th year as he is considering an officer training. Eitan said he asked for special permission just to come hear this talk. I doubt that. But at any rate, both of them were born in Shreveport, but have lived most of their lives in Israel. Their father, although graduating from New Orleans Medical School, took his pediatric and medicine residency at this institution and then followed to 4 years training at NIH. Now, I would like to ask them to please stand and be recognized. Now, please note the discrepancy in height of my wife versus the 2 children. Perhaps there's something in the soil, the air, or the water in Israel that provides their growth. Now that that's said, let's get on with the program. Wow. 40 years have passed, and I remember it as though it were yesterday. When my wife began typing in my handwritten notes, she said, "How can you say that? When today you often can't remember what you did yesterday." Without a moment's hesitation, I asked her how many people in today's audience might have been there 40 years ago. Who will know what is fiction and what is fact? Furthermore, who really cares? Her response, "You're right." I was given no directions as to the content of this presentation, and no one asked for an advance copy, so I'll proceed, but add a little humor to make up for the fiction. So let's begin. It was an exciting and highly anticipated occasion, held on a beautiful, clear October day under the shadow of A Building. The attendance included a large crowd of Shreveport citizens, dignitaries, and dedicated employees who had worked very hard to see the fruition of their work. There, I was on the podium, presiding in the presence of 2 governors, the president of LSU, the chancellor, and the founding dean. I had been named dean only 3 months before. Was I nervous? No question about it, and I'm sure the audience was well aware of it. I gave credit to the many who had made it happen. I decided when I prepared this address, I would not name individuals, as there were too many involved, and I was concerned I would leave someone out. There are documents and pictures in the library that rightly give them credit, and none received payment. They were a dedicated group who gave enormously of their time and money. Words cannot describe what they accomplished, and I encourage you to go to the library and look at the exhibit set up for your benefit. I will say no more about this, but instead talk about the event and what has transpired since. On the podium, beside those previously mentioned, remained an empty chair. When I began speaking, I noted the empty chair and proceeded to call the gentleman who wrote the grant securing the federal funds for construction and provided the architects with the program and needs of this institution. His picture hangs in this auditorium. A true genius, best described by one of the architects as if you ask him the time of the day, he would have to explain the workings of the watch before he answered the question. No question in my mind that without his presence, the school would have taken much longer to become a reality. Why don't y'all come sit down? Come on. There's plenty of seats available. No need to stand. You're not going to miss a lot anyway. There were at least 4 architectural firms working together. They were so proud of their accomplishments that I believe the monetary reward was only secondary. The building project was so large that no firm in the area could take it on. A firm from Houston was the low bidder and did such a marvelous job that they were hired to construct the Chase Medical Banking building downtown, originally the First National Bank. The president of the university was a vice president during construction. He was assigned to oversee the construction, a wonderful gentleman who participated in all phases of the project, making sure that everything was top-notch. Before the building was finished, he became president of the university. And I believe that this served our institution well, as he considered it his child and wanted to see it grow. As the event came to a close and I was more confident in my position, I noted to the crowd that before the closing prayer, that the priest who had delivered the opening prayer and was about to deliver the benediction had fallen from the most reverend to only the reverend in the printed program. I apologize for this program error, as he was a great choice to deliver these prayers, for he was widely known throughout the community for his devoted care and support of the less fortunate and downtrodden. His prayers were ecumenical and inspiring, a truly outstanding human being. Although the dedication was in October, the building was not completed until the latter part of December, when we moved into the building. Moving was accomplished by employees with rented trucks. Not an easy job, but no complaints. There were some events before we moved in that are worth noting. One inquisitive student, who should not have been in the building, noted a chain hanging from the ceiling in front of the science labs. Because of the curiosity, pulled the chain, and gushes of water poured out, flooding the floor and costing several $1,000s to correct the damage. I didn't want to do too much investigating, for I really didn't want to know the responsible party and end the career right then and there. Another event occurred when a gentleman was unable to find a chair and read a lengthy report, as there was no furniture in the building at that time, noted a commode in his office. Now, this commode was not bolted to the floor, but was bolted to the wall throughout the building. So what would you do in this situation? Naturally, seeing the commode, he sat down to read the report. And within a few seconds, found himself on the floor with the commode on his back. Now, this resulted in a hastily significant call conference in which the discussion sounded like this: should we put up signs or increase the strength of the bolts? Now, if signs were put up, what should they say? Offered was caution, sitting capacity 250 pounds or less, or caution, sit at your own risk. Both won out, and to my knowledge, no further actions occurred. In the basement of B building, to the right as you enter, and just beyond the second door, is a structure you will find nowhere else in the country. It is a very thick steel vault structure designed to do total body isotope potassium studies. This is isotope potassium that is normally present in everybody's body, and not what we have injected for other studies. Now, this isn't ordinary steel. For steel manufactured after World War II had been exposed to isotopes that are buried in all furnace walls. So where did the steel come from? It came from a ship sunk during World War II and that had not been exposed to the isotopes. When construction was completed of this structure, the cranes lifted it onto an 18-foot transport trailer. The chamber was so heavy that all tires immediately blew. That meant that only the ground would support this weight. So the school had to be constructed around this chamber. The walls are at least 12 inches thick and look like a bank vault. I'm sad to say that it never functioned as planned and cost between $200,000 to $300,000. Knowing I was going to include this structure in my presentation, I decided it would be in order to revisit the area. The office door said, Office of the Police, and the door was locked. I left, but while driving home, I heard a voice in my head that kept repeating, police officer, office, locked office, steel vault, over and over and over. Now my imagination really took over and ascended to the level of being ridiculous. For now, I begin to hear, in addition to that, previously, budget deficit, budget deficit. Now you might ask, and properly so, what does all this nonsense have to do with Founders Day? And why bore us further? Those of you who were here in the 90s might recall we were recognized as being the most profitable public hospital in the nation. Due to hard work, effort by everyone, we had earned $100 million over a couple of years and had scattered and hidden them throughout multiple banking institutions in the state for future use. Those were glorious days until the state was alerted to our savings. And how they became alerted is a different story, and I won't spend any time telling you. But from that point on, the question in Baton Rouge was raised frequently when there were a shortage of funds for any program, was said, what funds are still available in Shreveport? They didn't take everything, so perhaps some money was taken from the banks and hidden in that vault. Financial officers are very clever and capable of hiding money from the dean to keep him from overspending. I would therefore suggest to you, Dr. Barish, that you take a look and see what might be inside. I would also suggest you take someone who does weightlifting, for the door is quite heavy. Two other areas of the building I thought were unique were the computer and TV centers. The computer room was a large room with an elevated floor and controlled temperature. There sat in the middle of the floor an IBM computer costing $500,000. Up to this point, all data had been kept on punch cards and read every night after 5 p.m. at LSUS. The staff was very grateful when it became functional and did not have to make this trip. Today, a computer on everyone's desk has the capacity to do the same or more. My part in this operation, they trusted me to choose the color of the machine. I chose yellow, and the computer staff complimented me on my choice. The area now houses a server for the school. The TV room is a studio just as you would find at any TV station in Shreveport. When Cablevision moved into Shreveport, they were required to provide a free channel dedicated to education. And we were allowed to present a weekly half-hour broadcast that was played at our studio. I cannot tell you how many retakes were required before I got the introduction correct. The staff was very kind, very talented, very professional, and never showed any irritation with the retakes. These shows were eventually discontinued as they became no longer free. The facility continues with in-house recordings, including YouTube placement. I'm told this day that it will be shown on YouTube for a defined period of time. We also had an electron microscope on the second floor, a very sensitive instrument and the only one in the state outside of New Orleans. So sensitive that any vibration would distort the picture. This was occurring on a regular basis, and it was soon discovered that the front elevators were producing the vibration. Eventually, it was resolved with much damping of the scope. Now, I'm going to differ a little bit with Dr. Barish's interpretation of why a medical school in Shreveport. Often I'm asked that same question as he's been asked. How did Shreveport happen to acquire a medical school? My response has been, physicians have teaching embedded in their DNA. If you look back at our medical history in Shreveport, for years, every hospital in the city had an internship and a nursing program. Practicing physicians and nurses were willing to give their time for education. Many excellent physicians and nurses came from these institutions. As a child, myself, less than 5 years of age, I was presented at Shreveport Charity Hospital to a group of physicians by my operative surgeon, even though my operation was in a private hospital. A demonstration of doctors teaching doctors. In the mid-50s, as noted by Dr. Barish, a concrete apron was laid for a teaching facility that was canceled by the next governor. Then there was Charity Hospital first and later transferred to Confederate, where multiple teaching programs were headed by non-paid town physicians. Town physicians at their own expense would travel to Little Rock, New Orleans, Dallas, and even Memphis to recruit interns. Truly amazing dedication. Their graduates were able to compete with those from the more notable medical centers, but with far more experience in patient care. Did this factor into Shreveport being chosen for the medical school? When word was out that Shreveport was campaigning for a school, Lafayette immediately threw their hat in the ring to get the medical school. Because of the well-established programs at Confederate, they had little chance. What major events followed the opening of the school facility? The first, and I think most important, was the union of the hospital and the school envisioned by the chancellor and the head of DHHR with the governor's backing. We were able to grow by leaps and bounds as a result of the union. Confederate was completely renovated following completion of a new hospital wing. Later, a burn center, a transplant program, a radiation and gamma knife facility, a new outpatient building, including a separate but adjoined building for pediatrics and OB/GYN, a cancer center, a rehab facility, and so many other projects, all conceived to bring better health care to the area, and more often than not, the entire state outside of New Orleans. So if the community support continues as it has in the past, there should be no end what can be achieved. Enjoy yourselves, and thank you for coming to Founders Day. One final note, I would like to give credit to the Allied Health Program in physical therapy for having me being able to walk from my car to the auditorium and to climb these stairs without falling. A wonderful program.
Well, thank you, Dr. Muslow. And what we all love about academia is that Dr. Muslow gets to correct the chancellor in front of everybody on the history. So that's why we're here. Thank you so much, Dr. Muslow. I would like to present you with a token of our appreciation. It's behind me. It's a collage of the medical school buildings. And now I want to bring up Deidre Woodson. Where's Deidre? Come on up. Who is one of our librarians, and I guess we could call her the unofficial campus historian. It's so important to have someone like Deidre who makes the efforts to maintain the documents and other items that represent our history. Now, Deidre has coordinated a special project for today's event, a time capsule, that will be placed in the library to be opened in 10 years on the 50th anniversary of Founders Day. So, Deidre, come on up here, but I want to give... Coming up. Okay. Come on up. This is the collage that we put together for Dr. Muslow, with a personal note. And, this is now yours, Ike, and we hope you cherish it. Thank you to everybody. Hope you have fond memories.
good morning. Going after Dr. Muslow, that's a tough act to follow, I've got to say. Thank you, Dr. Barish. Like you said, I am Deidre Whitson, and my official title is Metadata and Digitization Librarian, which is just a fancy way of saying cataloging and archives. And it's because that I work with the archives is why I'm here today. Sally Kroom and Meg Willett approached me for planning today's event, and one of the ideas that they had was putting together a time capsule. And so that's what we're going to do today. We've picked student representatives from each of the schools, a representative from the residents, and a representative from the faculty, who will all be contributing an item to the time capsule. And this time capsule, of course, it's meant to commemorate today's event, as well as to mark this moment in our history. And it's going to be opened 10 years from today at our 50th anniversary. And so I want you all to mark on your calendars 10 years from today, October 28th, 2025, and I want you to be back here when we open the time capsule. And this capsule, after today, the time capsule will be placed in the library in our History of Medicine room. It's not going to be buried. I was asked that a little earlier. Okay, and also I wanted to thank Dr. Muslow for mentioning the exhibit in the library, because like he recommended that you go and see it, and I invite you as well. I had a little to do with that exhibit, so thank you very much. So the first item that's going in the time capsule is a letter that I've written. Actually, Sally and Meg asked me to write this letter that's addressed to our faculty, staff, and students of 2025. And I was very honored when they asked me to do this. I was actually quite surprised. And so I'll read the letter. October 28th, 2015. Dear faculty, staff, and students of 2025, on this day, Wednesday, October 28th, 2015, we celebrate a very special Founders Day, the 40th anniversary of LSU Health Shreveport. On this date, 40 years ago, nearly 1,000 people gathered on campus to witness the ceremonial ribbon cutting of the newly constructed School of Medicine in Shreveport. This event not only signified a new era in medical education in North Louisiana, but also represented a monumental achievement for the local physicians and citizens who worked tirelessly for 25 years to establish the School of Medicine. Local physicians began lobbying for a medical school in Shreveport as early as 1950. But they would face many struggles, from political opposition to lack of funding. Undaunted by these obstacles, these determined physicians persevered. Even when construction was halted, they partnered with the VA hospital so that the first medical school students could begin classes as scheduled in 1969. Finally, on October 28, 1975, a dedication ceremony was held to commemorate the completion of the medical school building. With the addition of the schools of graduate studies and allied health professions, our campus quickly grew into a thriving academic health sciences center. The growth continues to this day, as this year we accepted our largest medical school class ever, 126 students. Today we honor our founders for their dedication. We thank them for their hard work, and we remember them for their determination. Today we are inspired by their conviction to achieve a dream despite the overwhelming difficulties. We will always face obstacles, but we must honor our founders by overcoming every hurdle, just as they never accepted defeat. Now, we bequeath to you the contents of this time capsule. These items represent our academic campus as it exists today and were selected by representatives from our faculty, residents, and students. In addition to these items, we also give to you our hopes and dreams for an ever-thriving academic health sciences center that continues to honor the fortitude of our founders. Sincerely, Deidre Woodson. Now I will seal the letter. And as I place this in the time capsule, I invite our representatives to come up one by one and describe the item that they're submitting and place it in the capsule as well. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Blake Blanchard. I'm a third-year medical student here, and I'm very honored to be a part of Founders Day today. Was very honored just to be thought of to represent the medical school and the medical students. And the item that I plan on putting in the time capsule is one that we got not long ago. As we were ending our second year, we received this pin. It's a Humanism in Medicine pin. And it's simple, it's small, so it'll definitely fit. But it means a lot. To me, humanism is the soul of medicine. It's what makes medicine special. But unfortunately, it's probably the first part of medicine to go in somebody's practice. Whether they get desensitized, whether they get frustrated, they seem to lose that vision, not that vision, but that very important aspect of medicine, the soul of it. And my hopes are that in 10 years from now, whenever we open the capsule and I see this pen, that not only have I continued to have the humanism aspect of my medicine, but it's also evolved in my medicine practice. So, thank you. You guys want to envelope?
I would like to welcome all our guests once more. I am Merve Kasap from the Department of Pharmacology, Toxicology, and Neuroscience. I am a third-year PhD student, and it is a great honor to represent graduate students on this special day. We are asked to place an item into this time capsule so that people can learn from it. After many suggestions, we decided to run a gel, including samples from archaea to bacteria, from C. elegans to mammals, even humans. Each bend on this gel not only represents a protein, but also shows how we share the simplicity of complex life. I would like to quote from Dr. Corey Bergman, the director of Brain Initiative. For big revelations, look to the smallest of places. We had a small, humble beginning, as they mentioned, and look where we are now, and I would like you to imagine where we can be in the future. Before I hand over the microphone, I would like to thank Erin Navratil from Microbiology Department for running this gel for us. Thank you.
Hello, I'm John Ashley, and I'm here representing Allied Health. And just as an aside, Dr. Muslow, on behalf of the PTs, we would like to say you're very welcome for us being of service here. So what I'm going to put in the time capsule, because it's 2015, is an iPhone. And like I said, it's 2015. But no, seriously, with technology advancing, just about a staple of every classroom is PowerPoint, whether it's presentation or lecture. And you know, when people enter the medical school here today, they get a MacBook as well. So I think that even with the generations of the iPhones that have been since the 3 came out a couple years ago, we'll be able to see the advancements of technology when this time capsule is open in 10 years. So I think like iPhone 17 maybe will be on its way. And it'll just be interesting to see the progression of what technology can do for education as well as healthcare. So that's where we're putting it in for Allied Health. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Sanjay Juneja. I am a third year, a PGY3 in internal medicine here, and I just put in my application for HEMONC. First of all, I want to thank y'all for letting me be a part of this. This is such an awesome thing. Just being here really makes me kind of proud of being in healthcare and doing what I do, to see all of you guys and hear, you know, how we've come over time. It's just very humbling for me. I'm representing all the residents and fellows here. I'm president of the Executive Council for Residents and Fellows of LSU Health in Shreveport. And the item I chose is actually a clipboard. A couple of reasons I chose this. First of all, it's like a fancy clipboard because it has all kinds of like things that we use, like Glasgow coma scale, and it has a bunch of normal values for electrolytes and stuff. But I also like what it represents. A large part of what we do, especially as internists, is to be bedside and get a good history and develop a good relationship with the patients as far as introducing ourselves, making good eye contact, getting, you know, a history is very formative for our care with patients. So I can only hope that people are still writing things down and meeting people, you know, bedside in the future, even with the advent of electronic medical records. Hopefully it won't be something where you're just typing into a computer as you're speaking to the patient. So that's one thing I want to demonstrate. And secondly, things change. You know, I was looking this over and they're talking about creatinine clearance, and I know now they're talking already about a different marker for acute kidney injury and stuff. So I want to see if, you know, potentially some of these things have been ameliorated as a means of kind of surveying patient health day to day. So clipboard, and I will place it now. Thank you all.
Clearly, I have the grayest hair of this group. I'm Jane Eggerstead. I'm the Senior Associate Dean for Academic Affairs, and I represent the faculty contribution to the time capsule. So when I was asked what I was going to put into the time capsule, I really had to think about it for a long time. And so my selection is a copy of this journal, and I'll tell you a little bit about it. So I'm putting into the time capsule a copy of the National Medical Student Research Journal that was established by our own students. It's called the AMSRJ, or American Medical Student Research Journal. This journal represents, or is, a purely extracurricular scholarly enterprise developed entirely by students and supported enthusiastically by the faculty. We're all teachers, as Dr. Muslow said, as you see in these pictures. And this sort of exemplifies that and hopefully continues to further it. This journal contains research papers and other contributions submitted by medical students, both from our school and all over the U.S. and even all over the world. Its editorial board is entirely student managed, largely by our own students, supported by our own faculty advisory board, comprised largely of our own faculty. So the reason I selected this is that, to me, this is a nearly perfect representation of what a medical school should be able to accomplish. It means that we have somehow been able to create an environment in which the students feel both free and inspired to move beyond the simple fulfillment of their medical school course requirements and reach for a higher level of excellence in their personal development as physicians. I hope that when this time capsule is opened in 2025, actually I expect that the same striving for excellence will continue among all the students of LSU Health Science Center Shreveport. Thanks.
Oh, I have to add one thing. So as Chancellor, I got to add something as well, and I have a Chancellor's coin. I think many of you are familiar with And it's there. If you open it up, I think you'll see it there. It was there. Yes, it's at the bottom. Well, it's my chancellor's coin that says, "We heal, we teach, we discover, serving Louisiana and beyond." And it has, there we go. I know many of you have received this, but I thought it'd be important to add this as well to the time capsule. Okay. Okay. So, thank you, Deidre, and all of our time capsule participants. Again, Blake Blanchard, medical student, Merv Casper, graduate student, John Ashley, School of Allied Health, Dr. Drew Thomas, as well as others, and Dr. Jane Eggerstad, our faculty. So, hopefully we can all be here in 10 years to reopen the box and remember this day. And finally, on this Founders Day, we honor all the people who worked to establish this medical school. While many are gone now, they would certainly be most proud to know from that original class of 32 freshman medical students, we have grown to include 3 schools, 892 students, more than 500 faculty, and 600 residents and fellows. It is impossible to list all of those who have helped make us what we are today. Certainly began with Dr. Reed, the superintendent of the Charity Hospital, who first proposed the medical school in 1950, through victories and defeats, as outlined by Dr. Muslow over the next 25 years, a continuing parade of community leaders, politicians, and physicians joined in to play a part. There were 138 visiting faculty who were community leaders who gave their time to teach the students and residents. By the way, Dr. Tejada, who couldn't be here today, was one of those at the time. Dr. Paul Winder only recently retired. There were also 29 original full-time faculty members. Here in this auditorium, you see the portraits of 2 of our founders, Dean Edgar Hull and medical school coordinator, Dr. George McNeely. Business manager Reggie Graves, secretaries and other staff tended to the details. Local architects provided the design. Legislators and governors furthered the cause, along with the leadership of the LSU School of Medicine in New Orleans. Certainly, most instrumental to the effort were our area physicians, and specifically the Shreveport Medical Society and their study committee for the development of a medical school in Shreveport. This group, which was formed by the Shreveport Medical Society in 1963, was also a driving force. They spent countless hours of their own time visiting other medical schools, lobbying legislators, organizing the citizenry, and never letting go of the vision. A dozen local doctors made up that committee. It was led by Dr. Joe Holobank. Hi, Martha. And included some of the most well-known names in the local medical community. Dr. Bert Trickle, Dr. James Eddy, Dr. Ralph Riggs, Dr. Carson Reed, Dr. E.E. Dilworth, Dr. Charles Knight, Dr. Charles Black, Dr. Herbert Tucker, Dr. W.H. Carroll, Dr. Clarence Webb, and Dr. W.R. Matthews. Dr. Lee Stevens, who's on our faculty, is the current president of the Shreveport Medical Society. I'd like to ask him to come forward at this time. Lee? So, Lee, we would like to formally commemorate the efforts of these physicians and others who assisted with the process of establishing this medical school. It says LSU Health Sciences Center, Shreveport 2015 Founders Award, Shreveport Medical Society. We thank the Medical Society for their ongoing dedication to this medical school. Lee, why don't you come over here? You can see thought this would be a great gift. Stethoscope, LSU Health Sciences Center, Founders Award 2015, Shreveport Medical Society.
As many of you know now that I'm a child psychiatrist, but I still know how to use one of these things. I was an ER doctor in the Army for many years. One of the first things I want to do is thank Dr. Muslow. When I came here about over 20 years ago, I'd filled out all my paperwork to get a Louisiana license. And after several months had passed, with no progress, I tried to find out what's going on, and they called down there, and they didn't have a copy of my medical school diploma. Dr. Muslow called up UT in Houston, University of Texas, asked them if they'd be so kind as to please fax a copy of my diploma. And the next day I had a license. So I never had a chance to do this, but thank you very much. And I have this written out because I want to get this right. I accept this award on behalf of the Shreveport Medical Society, and first for our past members who were steadfast in their resolve to have a medical school here in Shreveport, Louisiana. Second, I also accept this for our current members who have pledged their continuing support to help preserve, maintain, and enhance the U.S. School of Medicine here in Shreveport, Louisiana. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for coming to this special day. And now please join us in the lobby for a reception. Thank you.